Hi guys, welcome back. We're talking lesson 29 today. This is going to be about place value. And guys, if I have not given you these cheat sheets, they look like this in class, please let me know. I would be happy to get those to you. You'll notice it's in a sheet protector, and that's so that you can write on it. What these are place value charts, and so I think it's a little bit easier to figure out the place value when you have a little table that's in front of you that can kind of help you out. Like I said, you notice there's two sides of them. On this side, not so many decimals, but definitely lots of whole numbers all the way to 100 million, okay? On this side, lots of decimals and only a little bit on this side. And that's when we're working with decimals or if you're working with whole numbers. Now, why is this important? Well, today we're gonna talk about rounding. Rounding. So if you're in my class, you need to be opening up your notes section of your notebook to be taking notes while we're doing this, right? So let's talk first example. And if you want to follow along in the book, I'm on page 164. Okay, the first example says use a number line to round 283 to the nearest hundred, and then to do it to the nearest 10. 283. So if I have 200. And then I have 300 here, right? Now, 200, so there's a couple different ways to do this, but first, since we're gonna be rounding to the nearest 10, I'm gonna break these up into 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, oh, I'm always off on that. 8, 9, and then here's my 10th one. So that's gonna be 300. All right, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 chunks there. Phew, making sure I got it right. All right, guys, so right smack dab in the middle is 250, right? Because that's right in the middle of 200 and 300. This is asking us to do 283. We're gonna take 283, well, this is 250, this is 60, 70, 80. 283 is probably gonna be right here, 283. And then on the other side of that would be 280, and then this guy right here would be 290. All right, so for part A, it's saying, hey, round this to the nearest hundreds. Well, 283, in fact, if it helps, I can write these in red, right? You can see how clearly that it is all the way over by 300. So if I was gonna round this to the nearest hundred, this would be 300. Now it's asking us to round to the nearest 10. So 283 to the nearest 10, that's this position right here. That is going to be 280. Do you see how it's closer to 280 than it is to 290? So that's using a number line to do this. I think drawing a number line can be a pain because it takes up a lot of time. So there's other ways of doing this. Let's take a look at example number 2. Round 283 to, rounding instead of using a number line. Fancy. All right. So example 2 is the same number, but for A, it says 283 to the nearest hundredths, and then 283 to the nearest tens. Again, we're gonna identify, this is our hundreds position, and if you're not sure about that, take a look. This is how this chart would be helpful. 283, and in fact, actually, let me do it on this chart so that you've got a good idea of how it works. All right, so 283, and it slides right into those one number per chunk here, right? And that's in our hundreds position. So what this is asking is round to the nearest hundreds. Well, here's my hundreds spot right here, right? Because it says hundreds. You need to look at the one next to it. This guy on the right is an 8. If it is 5 or larger, this guy rounds up, right? So that's gonna be 300, okay? Now, if it's less than 5, so anything 1 through 4, then it would just stay the same. Another way of using this chart to think about that is, since we're rounding to the hundred spot right here, right? Let's do 200 up here. Whoop, there you go, messing that up right off the bat. So I do 200 here, and then 300 down here, because those are the 283 comes between those two, right? And looking at that, 283, definitely closer to 300. So that's one way of thinking of it. Otherwise, just look to the number to the right. So now it's asking me to round to the nearest tens. 283. Count my markers. I go through so many. All right, so 283 to the nearest tens. Here's our tens position. We want to round to this one, which means we need to look at this guy. So is it going to be 280, because we keep that the same, or are we going to be rounding it up, 290? And notice whenever we're rounding to a position, we throw some zeros in at the end, right? So looking at this, is it closer to 280 or 290? Well, 283, that's less than 5, so it's going to be 280. 280. Okay. So then let's look at another one. Round 5,280. 5,280. So there is one non-zero digit, Well, if we did that, all these guys have to be zeros. So that's in our thousands position. Is it gonna stay 5,000 or is it gonna be boosted up to 6,000? Well, looking at that, take a look at the box next to it. That's a 2, right? And that's less than 5, so this is gonna stay the same. So it's gonna be closer to 5,000. So the answer would be 5,000. And I realize it's probably kind of hard to write notes with this if I haven't given these to you yet, so I'll give that to you on Monday. Okay, oops, let's not do that. Number 4, round 93,167,000 to the nearest millions. Okay, so this is the number that's printed in the book, and notice I wrote it down here so that I can make sure that I enter it into my chart backwards just to make it a little bit easier. 3 and 9. Good, so I've taken this number and I've entered it into my chart, and it's asking us to round to the nearest millions position. Taking a look here, our millions position right there, right? So then I take a look here. Now this 6 is gonna boost that guy up to 2. So if I were to change this, this would all become zeros, and this would be a 2, right? But that doesn't really change anything. So that's still under 5, but it's a good idea to keep an eye on those ones that are in the back. This is still under 5, so this is gonna stay at 93, not get boosted up. So 93, and so we round to this position, which means the rest have to be zeros. So this is 93 million. 93 million. Okay, now we're gonna talk about fractions and how we round those guys. So I'm gonna set this guy aside for right now. For example number 5, let me grab a marker. Example 5. This one says 14 and 7/12. 14 and 7/12. So guys, if I have this on a number line, it's coming in between 14 and 15, right? Exactly smack dab in the middle is 14 and 1/2. 14 and 1/2. Now guys, what we have to do is figure out with this fraction if it's larger than a half or smaller than a half. There's 2 ways to do this. We know that half of 12 is 6. So if this was 6/12, that would be 1/2, but it's 7/12, which is a little larger. So this is gonna be like right here. It's gonna be larger than 1/2. Another way to do that, 7/12 and 1/2. Let's compare these fractions. And remember, when we compare them, we make like a rocket ship and shoot up, right? So that's 12. This is 14. I'm multiplying 2 times 7. 12 times 1 gives me 12. 2 times, this gives me 14 up here, which means this one is larger. So this is larger than 1/2, which means we're gonna round this up to 15. So 14, so how you would show your work on that is you would write the problem down, 14 and 7/12 rounds to 15, rounds to 15. Excellent. All right, let's look at example number 6. Mentally estimate. Example 6. Mentally estimate. Okay, so looking at this guy, A is 5 and 7/10 times 3 and 1/3. So what we would want to do is mentally estimate this by rounding these. Now 7 out of 10, we know 5 out of 10 is half, right? So 7 is larger than 5, so this is going to be larger than 5 1/2, so we're going to round that up to 6. This becomes 6 times, now 3 and 1/3, 1/3 is large or is smaller than a half, so we're going to keep that at just 3. So if we did that, we would get 18. 18. Excellent. Let's look at number, okay. That was B. So let's look at, or I'm sorry, that was A. Let's look at B. 396 times 312. 396 times 312. Again, this guy right here, that's closer to 400. So I'm going to round that to 400. Times 312, that's closer to 300. Okay? So what I do is I take my 4 and my 3, and that gives me 12 with 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros, which means I have 120,000. 120,000. All right, so that was B, by the way. We said 120,000. Let me see, 396 times 312. We estimated that to be 120,000. Let's look at the calculator. We would get 396 times 312. The actual answer is 123,552. So we were really close, right? So it's a good way to estimate. Again, this is because I'm going to start letting you use calculators at some point here in the future, and you need to know garbage in, garbage out. So you've got to have a good idea on estimating ballpark figures. Okay, so then, C, I'm sorry, C. We have 4160 divided by, it's written like this, but I'm going to do a fraction bar, so I just like that, divided by 19. All right, guys, so what I would do is let's do 4160 divided by, let's round that up to 20. And the reason being is that now I can lob those zeros off, right? Now, cut this in half, cut 400 in half, you would get 200, cut 16 in half and you'd get 8. So this is 208 over 1, or just 208. So this, if I were to estimate it, would be around 208. Let's do the actual numbers. We would get 4160 divided by 19. Good, I said 208, and sure enough, the answer is 218. So we were real close, right? It's just, again, another way to ballpark that number. All right, guys, the practice is on page 167, A through G. I want you to go ahead and pause the video, practice those practice problems, and then come on back and we'll do them together. So A. All right, so I'm gonna use this guy right here. We're rounding 1,760 to the nearest hundredths. So let me put that into, we're gonna put that into here, 0, 6, 7, 1. We're rounding this to the nearest hundreds. That's this column right here. That means we take a look at this guy. This is 5 or greater. So it's either gonna be 1,700 or 1,800, right? 1,700 or 1,800. Because this is greater than 5, we're gonna go with 1,800. So your answer should be 1,800. All right, so then round this number, so 9, 8, 4, 5, to the nearest thousands, Well, here's our thousand spot is right here. So we take a look at these. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. This guy jumps this one up to a 5, right? So this would be 5,500, right? That means because this jumps up to a 5, this is closer to 6, right? So this is gonna be, well, so if we were rounding to the hundred spot, that would make it, but we're not, we're rounding to the thousands. So in this case, take a look at all this garbage back here. Is 489 closer to 5,000 or closer to 6,000? That really, paying attention to that other one is only really applicable when we start to get into decimals. So I would say, bam, let's stick with 5,000 because this is all less than 500, right? And that would come in between those. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, let's see the next one. All right, we're gonna do this one. 282, 681. Okay, round this to the nearest thousands. This is your thousand spot right here. So we take a look at this guy. That is less than 5. So we're gonna leave this alone then. Well, here, I'll write it down so you see it. 180, we're rounding to this, this spot, that's a 6,000, or is it 187,000? Since we're rounding to this spot, that's the one. Are we gonna leave it at 6 or are we gonna jump it up to 7? Sure enough, we look at this guy right here, 262 is closer to this 6 than it is jumping it up. It would have to be over 500 for us to jump it up, right? So your answer should be this guy, 186,000. Hopefully that rounding is making a little bit more sense. Let me know if you have questions about it. All right, so now we're gonna go back to our whiteboard here. We've got D, estimate each answer. 7,986 minus 3,074. So looking at this, I'm gonna round this guy up to 8,000. I'm gonna round this guy down to 3,000, right? That I'm gonna estimate to be 5,000. All right, so let's try E. 297 times 31. Let's say that this is 300 times, and I'm gonna round this guy down to 30. We know 3 times 3 is 9 with 1, 2, 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3 zeros, that means a comma here. So about 9,000. All right, let's talk about F. 5,860 divided by, again, it has that division symbol, but I'm going to use the fraction bar, divided by 19. All right, so personally, I would do it like this, 5860 divided by 20 so that I can lob those zeros off. And now I can cut them in half, right? 500 cut in half is 250. 80 cut in half is 40. 6 cut in half is 3. So that ends up being 293 if we cut that all in half. Now that was, so the way that, yeah, so what I'm getting at with that is, yeah, cut that in half, you get 293 over 1, right? Now another way you could have estimated this is to say that, well, that's like almost 6,000, so you'd say 6,000 over 20, right? Lob these zeros off and you would get 300. So do you see, I estimated 293, it was about 300, both those are real close. I'm, again, just looking for ballpark figures, okay? Awesome. All right, so some guy just picked up a flyer for my house. You guys know I'm trying to sell my house. Some guy just picked up a flyer, so hopefully he comes to the open house. That would be delightful. Okay, so that's why I had to pause it. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so, oh, and I put my book on the floor. So we were on F, let's do G. 12 1/4 divided by 3 7/8. Okay, a fourth is again less than half because if it were half, it would be 2 out of 4, right? Because that's half of 4. And it's 1 is less than 2, so this is gonna be about 12. No, ballpark it as 12. Divided by, and that guy right there, 7/8, that's like almost another additional 1, so I'm gonna say 4, okay? 12 divided by 4 is 3, so I estimate that to be about 3. All right, guys, excellent work. If you have any questions about these, let me know. If I have not given you these lovely little forms here, make sure that you ask me for them. I tend to forget, so if you need that, let me know. All right, guys, thanks so much, and I'll see you in class.